Somalia is undergoing significant changes to its political system, including amendments to the provisional constitution and an overhaul of its electoral system. Now, key to these changes is the introduction of a multi-party system and the amendment of the constitution to pave the way for a historic transition from an indirect clan-based voting system to a one-person, one-vote system with direct presidential elections. Now, on the show this week, we'll be discussing why Somalia is changing its indigenous clan-based political system to a one-man, one-vote Western model, and whether this will bring the much sought-after peace and stability to the Horn of Africa nation. I'm Ucheo Koronkwo. Welcome to Talk Africa. And joining me now to unpack Somalia's new electoral system are from Nairobi, Dr. Mursal Khalif. He is a member of parliament and member of the National Defense Committee of the Somalia Federal Parliament. And from Mogadishu, Honorable Hassan Malim. He is the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs in the Somali federal government. And also in Mogadishu, we're joined by Professor Shafiq Yusuf Omar. He's a political and economic analyst with the head of Brilliance Hub Research. Welcome, gentlemen, to the program, and thank you for joining us today. Now, let's start off with you, Dr. Khalif. Give us some more insight into this clan-based political system, which we know has been in place in Somalia. How does it work? And certainly, what is the origin of this system?
Somalia has had one of the most brutal, longest civil wars in the world, or maybe even in the continent of Africa. As a result of that, after over a decade of civil war, Somali leaders from the clan spectrum, Somali scholars, Somali religious leaders, and civil society members get together in the small town of Arta in Djibouti in the year of 2000, 25 years ago, and decided to form a government of national unity to replace the warlords and the chaos back home in Somalia. And as a result of that, Somalis have agreed to set up a system of governance that's based on power sharing across 5 major clans in the nation. That means that each of the 5 major clans has a number of federal legislative members that are attributed to them, and the selection process of those clan representatives in the National Assembly or Federal Parliament has evolved over the years. However, there are still some challenges and obstacles that need to be sorted out before we basically squander the opportunities that have been gained over the last decade.
I'd like to get Professor Omar's take on that. Do you agree that it was the bedrock of Somalia's political system? Why exactly was this clan-based system practiced for so long? Has it worked for the country so far?
Somalia was just started from the 4.5 formula, as Dr. Khalifa said, but that was only to prevent the civil war and to reunite Somali. Because of the all the root of the problem right now we have, it's clan-based. It was not a universal suffrage as any country in the world uses. So it was it was starting in 50, then 100 people can select the person. So that brought problems to Somali. That's why we have every time unknown conflict, because some of the terrorists and some of the people, because only one person of the elders selected the person, not all the people, which is one person, one vote. Now we are in that transformation from the from the clan-based 4.5 to universal service or something similar. The problem and the chaos right now we have it's because how the process and the transformation was made was not okay. It was the dominant party only made how they want. They selected the committee from their part. So that's why most of the candidates and the stakeholders, international community, and all Somalia are worried about.
Honorable Malim, let me just bring you into this discussions. What are the fundamental issues that, of course, have led to this push to change Somalia's traditional political system?
What has actually caused us to change course is the fact that we have been going along this road and of not an electionist, but selectionist, and that has been deteriorating in the standard along the way. You know, the last system we had was the indirect elections. It was called indirect elections, which is a misnomer in itself, because it's not election, and if it's not an election, it cannot be indirect election. So what we have decided instead was to have one person, one vote, to enhance the legitimacy. And there has been, every time those kinds of elections have been held, it has created a friction and a conflict. And the last time we had it, some 4 years ago, we were on the verge of causing a conflict. A real conflict has been averted. So we cannot repeat it. And we have vowed, and last time, everybody, the candidates, they have pledged in their campaign promises that this kind of election will not be repeated, and a new way of elections will be initiated. So we are true to our word that we have promised to our citizens, and we are accountable to them. So the government have just implemented what we have promised them in the campaign promises, and we are glad that we have gone so far enough. Now it's time to implement, because we have completed the institutional and the legal frameworks in the first 3 years, and now we are on the cusp of holding one person, one vote, and our citizens, they have started registering as voters for the first time.
Well, Dr. Khalif, is the idea of changing the political system an outcome of external pressure, or is it the decision of the people of Somalia?
Somalis have had a long-standing culture before even the Somali state was formed of being both egalitarian as well as democratic in nature. Somalis have believed equality across its tradition. And to get to your question, because of that tradition, I think it would always have been in the making for Somalis to agree to a system of governance that is more closely aligned with modern democratic governance. However, there have been external forces, the United Nations, certain Western donors and supporters of the nation-building efforts in Somalia, who have pushed a Western style of democracy, and sometimes without understanding the underlying conflicts and the historic context of Somalia.
And what about you, Professor Omar? Do you think that there's any external pressure factored in here, or is this purely a decision that comes from the people?
Yeah, always there is some external factor or pressure which create the scenario of Africa or Somali. As African, this democracy we have adapted, it was new to us and it was not in line with our cultural. Not only Somali, that's what every African is complying. So at the end of the day, when the colonial win, they forced the people to adapt to this one. And really, it's not in line with forget about Somalia, which is not stable. And even now, most of the people of Somalia, that's why they say we can't adapt exactly the universal service. Let us move from clan-based African to the international election. So between this, we adapt to something new. But all our problems is from external. Let me say from what is called international community. Though they supported us, but most of the politically and yeah, everything is it's has a condition which can trap you at the end of the days. They support you when you come. When the election come, they come against you. Yeah, this is what every master colony do in Africa. And yeah, I hope now the wave is started. This Monday set is going to change, but Somalia is far from to change the mindset since we are not stable.
Well, Honorable Malim, how will this new system bring about changes to the political landscape and also the ideologies that have existed for decades in the country?
You know, the fundamental problems we were having was that while governments have been elected for the past 15 years, none of them has come to power through universal suffrage. And that in itself has decreased the legitimacy of that government and the accountability that needs to exist between citizens and the elected officials. Now, for the first time, why we are doing this? Because we now need that power to be held to account, for what they are doing and what they have promised when they were campaigning to be elected or re-elected.
Well, certainly a fascinating discussion, but right now we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll be taking a look at the opportunities and also the challenges for Somalia under this new electoral system. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Talk Africa, and still with me are Honorable Hassan Malim, Dr. Mursal Khalif, and Professor Shafiq Yusuf Omar. Now, before the break, we were discussing why Somalia is transitioning to this new electoral system. But let's now take a look at the opportunities and also the challenges for Somalia under this new system. Dr. Khalif, I'll go to you first. What immediate challenges or benefits might Somalia face as, of course, it transitions?
The challenges facing Somalia, even without engaging in this transition to a new electoral system, is really many. We have had security challenges. We have been dealing with two internationally affiliated terrorist organizations in Somalia, and we are fighting them as we speak. ISIS in northeastern parts of Somalia and the state of Puntland, and Al-Shabaab in most of south and central Somalia. That security challenge, coupled with humanitarian issues, every year we have had droughts or floods or other food insecurities for millions of people, then we are dealing with this. And the context of this election and its challenges are first and foremost, how do we get to agree on the process before we even get to the elections? Meaning, how do all the stakeholders, national stakeholders, Somali people, have a overwhelming agreement of the process, how the elections will be conducted, what is the proportionality of power allocations through the different districts, regions, and federal member states. Who will be the arbiter? Who will judge if there are disputes? We're not in agreement in any of this at this juncture. The biggest challenge is the current president, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, and his administration have set up timelines that were never met, have set up dates that they would hold municipal elections, which were supposed to happen June of last year. It never happened. And then the simple fact that overarches all of this is that if we're not in agreement on all of those things at this juncture,
right,
how can we agree on the results of those elections? And one thing we know for a fact is in Africa and elsewhere, disputed elections often lead to chaos and conflict.
I'd like to get Professor Omar's take on what you said, the fact that the process is going to be quite tough, finding consensus. What's your take on that, Professor? And of course, does this pose any opportunity for Somalia to sort of change its system?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Dr. Khalifa. Yeah, because the president, the current, let me back to what he said. The current president, what he was complaining when he was outside of the office. Right now, he is manipulating the constitution. He changed the constitution without consulting the regional federal, which is stakeholders, and also most of the problem is Somali, because the government, central government, collapsed due to the violation of the election. Yeah, there is some opportunity. We hope that in international community, they call it negotiation and consultation with all stakeholders, civil society, womenist, educationists, and political parties. So this one will be solved, and I hope the only solution is to just establish neutral electoral committee and to back to the amendment constitution that was one side. And if we do these two things, I hope there is opportunity Somalia to move from one clan to universal suffrage as any country in the world.
Well, Honorable Malim, what guarantee is there that these three political parties that the Constitution will establish will not be clan-based?
It could not be, because if you want to win, if you are the reason why they have been reduced to three parties, that you need to have a national representation to win seats and to win power in Somalia at the time. And because you need over 30% of the Somali population, and that guarantees itself that the system itself will not allow you to win power while you are only representing your clan.
Does this change significantly impact the fight to curb al-Shabaab's influence, especially in the region?
Since I serve on the Parliamentary Defense Committee, al-Shabaab is a transnational terrorist organization. You're absolutely right. They are a regional problem, not only to Somalia, but the entire Horn of Africa region. They are affiliated with Al-Qaeda. We have had an opportunity in the first few years, I would say the first two and a half years of the President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's administration. We have had an opportunity to eliminate or defeat or degrade significantly the Al-Shabaab threat, both for the Somalis and for the region. Unfortunately, that opportunity has been squandered with the fact that President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud chose to engage in divisive domestic politics, mainly unilaterally changing the constitution and unilaterally setting up an electoral model and an electoral commission that most of the stakeholders did not agree. Why am I bringing this up in the context of Al-Shabaab? Because politics is always an extension of security. Security is an extension of politics. Security doesn't happen in a vacuum because there is a broad consensus and collaboration of the community that's needed to establish and improve security.
Now, looking ahead, and I'll start off with you, Dr. Khalifa, one theme keeps coming up, and that's the process, the process. We know there are meetings currently ongoing to get that consensus on those unresolved issues. I'd like to get your take on whether there is a guarantee that we won't see this process causing problems or serious problems for Somalia in the future. You alluded to this earlier, Doctor.
Yes, the challenges we have when we look strictly at the politics or the electoral issues have much to do with the process, as you stated. The current ongoing so-called national dialogue that President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has started in Mogadishu a few days ago is really a charade and a scam. It's a charade because it's only about photo ops. It's a scam because he's trying to pull a wool over the eyes of the Somali people and Somalia's international partners to show himself or illustrate himself as someone who's really having a meaningful dialogue with the opposition, when he is just meeting with 90% of his supporters and people that he has basically brought into the political scene who have not held office or were not a candidate for over 20 years. The former prime minister from 20 years ago, who has never run for office afterwards, few former parliamentary speakers who have never sought public office over a decade or more. These are not going to be credible partners to have a dialogue with. And President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud knows it, but because Somalia's international partners have been pressuring him to hold a national dialogue, he wants to say, hey, see, I have had the national dialogue. Now get off my back. Let me move on with the election that you know, I know, and every Somali knows will only guarantee my comeback.
Right. And Honorable Malim, how much support is there really for this change on all levels of government and also with the Somalis people?
What I can tell you was that first time Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, the current president, was elected 3 years ago, he convened what is called the National Consultative Council. And that brings together federal member states and the federal government of Somalia to thrash out and to resolve contentious issues that has held back for the constitutional review process and the completion of our constitution. One is that, so far, over 10 such meetings has been held. And what they have produced was that what we needed was a political agreement we had on these contentious issues, like the judicial model, the fiscal model, the electoral model, the security architecture model of Somalia, and so on and so on. So that meant the agreements were reached. The three constitutionally mandated institutions, which is the ministry, the Independent Electoral Commission, and the Oversight Committee of Parliament for the implementation and of the Constitution. All of these institutions, then they have, what they were able to do was to pass it and submit it to Parliament. And as you are aware, 4 of the chapters out of the 15 have already been approved. And another 5 is already at the Parliament, but they were not able to submit, to approve and endorse in this session. So it has always been at all levels of government, we negotiate and then agree upon on those contentious issues one by one in every meeting they were holding for the past 3 years.
Before we go, I'd like to get your quick views, Professor Omar, on the fact that presidential term limits are written in many African constitutions, but the reality is that some African countries continue to defy this law or prefer their cultural, clan-based, tribal-based systems. The debate in Africa today is about African solutions for African problems. Is this something Somalis desire, or is it something that is sort of being imposed on them in the name of democracy?
Yeah, thank you. That one is from external in the name of democracy. As Yerere and Nkrumah, all the Africans intellectual indicated, this system of the democracy brought to African poverty and political instability. This is well known because we are only talking about Somali minor things, but this is well known. Yeah, the term of the president, it's very, 4 years when he come, he prepare for, so then the next election come, this always it creates stress. If the people get, we say in Africa, physical independence never guaranteed mental independence. So mentally still we are not. So there is usually condition, follow this. If you don't follow this, we will do this. So, and I hope this one will go by term. But yes, I agree that this is from external policy, which was forced to all Africans. The term of the president is better to be at least 6 years. Yeah.
Well, it was a very interesting discussion today, but that's all we have time for on this edition of Talk Africa. A big thank you to our guest, Dr. Mursal Khalif. He's a member of parliament and a member of the National Defense Committee of the Somalia Federal Parliament. Also, Honorable Hassan Malim, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs in the Somali Federal Government. And of course, Professor Shafiq Yusuf Omar, political and economic analyst with the head of Brilliance Hub Research. Now remember, you can be part of this conversation online through our social media handles on both Facebook and X. You can also catch the show on our YouTube playlist. Do keep the conversation going and join us again next week for more Talk Africa. From me, Uche Okoronkwo, and of course the rest of the team here in Nairobi, until next time, it's a good night.